the IDF making significant advancements in their ground maneuver and efforts to eliminate Hamas from Gaza, commanding officer of the Southern Command reflects on the challenging nature of the battle. Meanwhile, Defense Minister Gallant underscores the determination to continue the offensive until the mission, including the return of the hostages, is fully accomplished. And ILTV's Steve Leibovich reports.
12 days after the start of the ground maneuver and after a month of aerial attacks on infrastructure, the terrorists are unable to contend with the IDF tanks and infantry moving steadily forward, determined to end Hamas' presence in Gaza. IDF troops took control of a Hamas military stronghold in the heart of Gaza City and struck terror operatives barricading themselves near a hospital. Days after surrounding Gaza City and cutting it in half, troops are concentrating efforts on capturing command and control centers and flushing Hamas members from hideouts on the outskirts of the crowded city.
אנו נלחמים גם בשעות הללו במרכזים המשמעותיים ביותר של רצועת עזה. משם אני שב כעת. לראשונה, בעשרות השנים האחרונות, צה"ל נלחם בלב ליבה של העיר עזה. בלב ליבת הטרור. זו מלחמה מורכבת וקשה, ולצערי יש בה גם מחירים.
Defense Minister Gallant said that from his point of view, the offensive must continue until the mission is complete, and that includes the return of all of the hostages. The IDF found the opening of terror tunnels in a Gaza amusement park. The IDF is also focusing efforts on taking out remaining Hamas rocket launchers still firing into Israel. Those efforts continue from air and on the ground. It's clear that the Hamas ability to fire rockets into Israel has been somewhat curtailed. The terrorists managed to fire rockets into the south and central Israel, but the rocket fire is becoming somewhat more sporadic. The goal is to have it eliminated entirely.
The pressure is mounting on Israel to allow for a humanitarian pause in Gaza for the benefit of the local residents displaced by the war. Israeli political and military leaders are refusing any stoppage until the job of destroying Hamas and ending the threat is complete. And ILTV's Devo Klein has more.
In a brief exchange with reporters, U.S. President Joe Biden confirms that he has asked Prime Minister Netanyahu to agree to humanitarian pause, but had yet to hear back.
Did you ask the Prime Minister of Israel for a 3-day pause?
I didn't get a chance to talk to him. I did ask him for a pause in the past, yesterday. Still waiting to hear some other things.
Israel continues to push back against U.S. pressure for humanitarian pauses in Gaza, saying it will give Hamas time to reorganize. Defense Minister Gallant and Prime Minister Netanyahu both made Israel's position clear and tied it to the hostages.
לא תהיה הפסקת אש בלי החזרת חטופינו.
לא תהיה הפוגה הומניטרית בלי החזרת חטופים.
Israel says no to a pause in the fighting, but not to humanitarian assistance to avoid civilian casualties. The IDF has opened a safe passage route allowing movement to the south. Israel is now protecting those civilians against Hamas attempts to prevent Palestinians from evacuating northern Gaza and wanting to use them as human shields against IDF attacks. Israel also allows trucks filled with humanitarian aid, including food, water, and medicine, to enter Gaza daily via the Rafah crossing.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
And joining us now to elaborate on the international law, humanitarian aid or not, and more is former head of the Military's Prosecution Office for Judea and Samaria, Lieutenant Colonel, Reserves, and Attorney Maurice Hirsch. Maurice, during wartime, what if any humanitarian obligations must Israel obey when dealing with a terrorist government? Must we abide by humanitarian pause in fighting? I mean, to what benefit, really?
There's no requirement, really, that we stop fighting in order to provide humanitarian aid. What Israel's trying to do, Israel's stated goal, what Israel is operating towards is the elimination of Hamas. We don't have a problem with the Gazan civilian population that isn't involved in the fighting, that isn't part of the terrorist organization, and we mean them no harm. So as you've already seen, as the world has already seen, Israel has already facilitated the entry into Gaza of literally thousands of trucks of food and water and medical supplies for the benefit of that civilian population.
Yes, we're seeing that in the past weeks. Now, why is there no clamoring internationally for the basic humanitarian gesture of, informing us about the welfare of the 241 hostages, men, women, and children? Why give anything in the meantime?
Well, unfortunately, this whole war is being fought on a one-sided basis. Israel is being required to give up on all of its strategic requirements and assets, and the other side, the terrorists, are being required to do nothing whatsoever. They're intentionally using the civilian population as their human shields, and as the world puts more and more pressure only on Israel, so the terrorists enjoy that benefit of being able to demonize Israel, while at the same time breaching themselves international humanitarian law, using the civilian population as human shields. And no one really cares about the fact that Hamas is holding hostages from Israel. Israel is being required, instead of meeting this really very simple equation of humanitarian actions and gestures in return for other humanitarian gestures. For example, we give you aid, you release our hostages. That's something which isn't even on the table. And at the same time, Egypt is also blocking any exit, really, of the innocent Gazans into the Sinai. And also on that subject, the international community is very sadly very quiet.
Can Israel say, thank you, President Biden, we're allies and continue working together, but we're doing this on our way this time?
Well, obviously, Israel is enjoying the support that we're receiving from the United States, from President Biden. But I think there are some things which really do have to be clear. Israel's goal is to eliminate Hamas. Anything that stands in the way of achieving that goal and really making the Middle East a safer place for everybody is something which is counterproductive. So I think it's one of those things which, in that discussion between the Israeli authorities and the Biden authorities, it has to be understood that anything that delays the goal of toppling Hamas isn't something which is going to contribute to further stability, and therefore is something which is actually detrimental.
Israel captured a large number of terrorists who entered Israel on October 7th. I understand that their prosecutions are being prepared. What kind of charges can be expected, and might the death penalty be a possibility for those convicted with murder?
So I think this is not an easy problem to deal with. Mostly in Israel's civilian law, there is obviously the offense of murder. It doesn't necessarily carry a death sentence with it. And really the crime of murder isn't even appropriate in these circumstances. What's being considered at the moment, both legislatively and as a policy basis, is formulating a law similar to the law created to prosecute the Nazis and their assistants, where you come and say, this is a whole new type of event. It includes, obviously, the basic element of murder, but on a wide genocidal scale. And therefore, something new has to be adopted in order to deal with that new situation. This is a question that already came up in the prosecution of Adolf Eichmann. And so Israel's legal system has already given and really prepared its responses for those cases, and it didn't stand alone. Those decisions and those processes were also based on the Nuremberg trials following the Second World War. So Israel really does have a very substantial and substantive legal basis to prosecute all of the terrorists who were involved in the massacre to the full extent of the law. And yes, were it up to me, I would say that those convicted for active participation in the massacre should be subject potentially to the death sentence.
Definitely decisions that are still to be taken in the near future. Maurice, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hezbollah terrorists are continuing rocket and mortar fire at northern Israel, and Israel continues to retaliate with deadly force. This as Defense Minister Yoav Gallant issued yet another stern warning to Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah. And ILTV Steve Leibovich has more.
Israeli jet fighters pounded southern Lebanon, striking Hezbollah arms depots, rocket launching posts, and other sites in response to a barrage of incoming rockets into northern Israel. Earlier, the army knocked out a Hezbollah anti-tank guided missile cell preparing an attack. Defense Minister Gallant issued yet another pointed warning to Hezbollah leader Nasrallah and told him his fate could be the same as that of the leader of Hamas in Gaza.
אין לנו עניין לעשות או לקיים מלחמה כנגד חיזבאללה. יחיא סינואר עשה טעות, גרר את חמאס למלחמה. התוצאה היא חורבנה של עזה ושל ארגון החמאס. אם נסראללה יעשה טעות, הוא יחרוץ את גורלה של לבנון.
Gallant spoke of the heavy price Israel is exacting on Hezbollah in response to every aggression.
ואנחנו משיבים באש על כל אירוע. התוצאות הן למעלה מ-70 הרוגים לחיזבאללה ולשלוחים שלו, וזה ימשיך ויעשה בדרך הזאת. אם הם יעשו טעות ויגררו את לבנון למלחמה, הם ישלמו מחיר כבד מאוד.
The town of Shlomi on the Lebanese border was evacuated along with the other communities on the northern frontier. A month after the devastating Hamas attack from Gaza, the Shlomi mayor and town leaders are warning against the even more dangerous Hezbollah and called on Israel's leaders to eradicate Hezbollah at its core.
אנחנו היום נלחמים נגד אויב אכזר בדרום, אבל אסור לשכוח שמאחורי ההר הזה ישנו אויב הרבה יותר אכזר, וזה החיזבאללה. החיזבאללה זה לא חמאס, זה צבא מאומן, הם הרבה יותר מסוכנים.
Yes, now 2 more IDF soldiers killed in battle in northern Gaza, bringing the number to 33. This as Hamas continues firing heavy rocket barrages into central Israel, while the IDF is holding a strong grip inside the strip. And ILTV's William Sharon reports.
The Israeli Defense Force have identified Major General Reservist Yaakov Ozari, 28-year-old armored fighter in the 52nd Platoon from Kfar Shammai, who was killed in the ongoing battle in northern Gaza Strip. Alongside this tragic news, 3 other soldiers from various brigades were seriously injured in the same conflict. Last night, Major Jonathan Chatzul, 22 years old from Katsir, fighter in the Shell Dog unit, was killed in battle in the northern Gaza Strip. Last night, a home in Savyon in central Israel was struck by a rocket's direct hit as Hamas launched 2 significant rocket barrages towards the Tel Aviv area within just half an hour. Red alert sirens were heard across several communities, including Tel Aviv, Yafo, Kfar Kasem, Herzliya, and more, but thankfully, no injuries were reported. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu marked the 1-month anniversary of the war, emphasizing that Hamas is being effectively dealt with, and that Israel has eliminated thousands of terrorists both above and below ground. Netanyahu's message was clear: Gaza will no longer pose a threat to Israel. Furthermore, he addressed the ongoing violence from Hamas and Hezbollah, warning that there would be no ceasefire without the return of Israeli hostages. He urged world leaders to support Israel's efforts to ensure its security.
Very strong message coming out there. Now, 12-year-old Eitan Yahalomi, also named Tantan or Tuni, was abducted to Gaza on October 7th. Sweet Eitan is a devoted fan of the Manchester City soccer team, and the game is the most important thing in his life. Bravely, his father, Ohad Yahalomi, shielded his family when terrorists infiltrated their safe room in Kibbutz Nir Oz. Ohad stood guard outside the sealed room with a handgun. When Hamas terrorists breached their home, a gun battle erupted, leaving Ohad wounded. The terrorists forcefully took the mother, Batsheva, and her children on mopeds, separated from Eitan during their escape. Batsheva managed to jump off the motorcycle and escaped with her daughters, but Eitan's motorcycle sped towards Gaza, leaving the boy alone. Ohad, the father, is wounded and held hostage too. Batsheva recounted the horrifying moments. We dreamed of peace with Gaza, and entire families, including babies, were killed. This is not a story from the Holocaust. This is now. We have to bring them home. Israeli communities around the world unite in a heartfelt show of solidarity with vigils, demonstrations, and commemorations held in Jerusalem, in Tel Aviv, in Berlin, the US, and Buenos Aires, marking 1 month since the devastating October 7th Hamas attack and the ongoing captivity of the hostages. In a heartfelt show of solidarity, Israeli communities came together, among others, at Jerusalem's Western Wall to remember the hostages being held in Gaza by Hamas, marking 1 month since the devastating October 7th massacre.
I think that what we see now, and we heard it also from the Chancellor himself, there is a shifting of the perception of what's going on in the world in general, because it's not about something that happened to Israel. It's something universal. It's about universal values of being good people, of fighting for the truth.
Meanwhile, in Berlin, people gathered in front of the Brandenburg Gate to commemorate the victims of the Hamas attack, with audio recordings of the attack sirens and victims' voices playing in the background.
We need help now. We don't know what is their condition. This is a call for action. And this is a wake-up call, not only for Israel, not only for the Jewish community. This is a wake-up call for all of you here, all of America, all of Europe. You are next. You are next.
The House Republican Conference also showed their support for Israel, joining the families of the hostages. U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson reassured that Congress had passed measures to support Israel's defense and called for de-escalation. A touching display of solidarity took place in Buenos Aires, with 30 teddy bears exhibited at the centric Buenos Aires obelisk to symbolize the children held captive in Gaza. Organizers noted that over 10% of the Hamas hostages are Argentinians, underscoring the global impact of this crisis. The U.S. House of Representatives has voted to censure Democratic Representative Rashida Tlaib, accusing her of spreading false narratives about Hamas and making statements calling for destruction of the State of Israel. And ILTV's Devo Klein has more.
The U.S. House of Representatives has voted to censure Democratic Representative Rashida Tlaib, the lone Palestinian American in Congress, for comments she made about Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza. A total of 22 Democrats, along with most Republicans, joined forces to censure Tlaib, accusing her of spreading what they deemed as false narratives about Hamas's actions in Israel on October 7th, and for making statements calling for the destruction of the State of Israel. The motion to censure was introduced by Republican Representative Richard McCormick and ultimately passed with a 234 to 188 vote in the Republican-controlled chamber. 4 Republicans voted against the motion, while 3 Democrats and 1 Republican chose to abstain. The censure motion specifically referenced a social media video posted by Tlaib containing the phrase, "from the river to the sea," the pro-Palestinian slogan calling for the eradication of Israel. Tlaib further stirred controversy when she accused President Joe Biden of supporting the genocide of the Palestinian people, a claim strongly rejected by Israel. Tlaib addressed the accusation of anti-Semitism during her speech on the House floor, emphasizing, "I am the only Palestinian American in Congress, and my perspective is needed more than ever."
And now war brings many things with it, and 2 positive angles we're seeing will be discussed here today. The one navigating legal avenues amidst conflict is Decker Peck's Levy and Rosenberg Law Office's partner, Joshua Peck, here with us in studio. Joshua, thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's great to be here.
Great. So can you take us into the first requests that came in? Why are so many people so eager to come live in Israel, to make an aliyah right now during times of war?
So I think what happened is many people all around the world were sitting in front of the TV, watching the news, and seeing these horrific sights, unimaginable atrocities of Hamas, and thinking, we need to do something. Maybe they've been contemplating aliyah for a while, or we're even getting emails, phone calls from people all around the world, Americans, UK, even African, Indian countries saying, we want to come to Israel, we want to help, we want to volunteer, people saying we want to join the IDF. Actually, we got a notice from Google that on our website there was a spike of 10 times the normal traffic regarding all kinds of words that have to do with aliyah, volunteering in Israel. So this was a big surprise to me.
Wow, so we'll definitely go back to the IDF really soon. Now, do you know maybe the numbers? I mean, the differences between what was before the war and what is now? What's happening?
So there's a big increase in interest. I can't give you the exact numbers because we're only one website and on a private law firm, but we know that many Israelis, first of all, have come back. There's a big increase in people wanting to make aliyah, and also many foreigners that are not even Jewish that want to come to Israel and help.
That's really something really beautiful about Israel now. As you said, many also non-Jewish people. How does it work with the law of return? Does anyone get precedence? How does it work in your firm specifically?
So first of all, obviously there is a law of return that either if you're Jewish or a child or a grandchild of a Jew, you can make aliyah according to the law of return and get citizenship automatically. So that's sort of the overall way to immigrate to Israel and get citizenship. If you're not Jewish, there are different options for visas, working, investing, volunteering, obviously students, or even visiting.
And you also mentioned so many people wanting to draft to the IDF and non-Jews. We saw, if you saw in the recent days, like cowboys from Arkansas coming to Israel to work here, not in the IDF, but really in agriculture. How does it work from a legal perspective? Is it even allowed non-Jews that want to come draft in the army? How does it work legally?
Yes, so it's not actually possible. So we're getting all these contacts from really usually ex-military Marines saying, I'm American, I was in Iraq, I want to come help you. But in Israel, it doesn't work like that. If you're Jewish or eligible for Aliyah, you can make Aliyah, receive citizenship, and join the IDF. It's a very well organized program. There's a special program for foreigners who are Jewish or eligible for Aliyah called Machal. But if not, I mean, there are other ways to help. The Ministry of Health has issued that if you have a background in medical work, nurses, doctors, paramedics, they can help. Obviously, people can come here, volunteer, and donate money. There are different ways to help. But if you're not Jewish, a foreigner, then you can't join the IDF. That's not an option.
Of course, there are many ways to help, specifically now and here in Israel. Do you see also the other side, people who are seeking for help from your office really wanting to leave Israel now because of the situation?
Not that much. People are coming and going. Obviously, everyone has their own decision to make, but we are seeing some people that wanted a foreign passport or have started the process for German or Austrian passports, and now suddenly it became more urgent for them. But they have to understand that any process of immigration is something that usually takes a long time. So it's not like, we want to leave now and we're going to do it. So it doesn't work that way.
Something else we're going to have right now is your QR code on the screen. How can your office really assist? I mean, all the information will be in the QR code, but really from your part, how can your office assist in the process?
So many people who are seeking to make Aliyah can do it on their own. They actually get help from Nefesh B'Nefesh, from the Jewish agency, but there are always those that also run into difficulties. They don't understand the Israeli bureaucracy, or maybe they have real problems detecting documents or proving eligibility. Anything that has to do with immigration to Israel, if you run into trouble, we're very happy to assist. We're excited of helping people move to Israel.
That's great. That's definitely a positive angle we can say of this war. Thank you so much, Joshua, for joining us today, and you're welcome to go check it out. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight with lows of around 16 degrees Celsius or 62 degrees Fahrenheit. And tomorrow, clear skies alongside rising temperatures set to reach highs of 28 degrees Celsius or 83 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channel, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and of course, do not forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all of the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Amit Harari. Stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.